most of what's called mental health is actually physical health. Mental health amongst young people is huge, but I'd say get a good night's sleep, exercise regularly, get outside in nature, and don't eat shit. 4 things. Okay, if anyone with mental health problems who's, not in bereavement or something, right? Just anyone who's just, normally anxious, depressed kid, do those 4 things, 90% of their people with mental health problems will no longer have mental health problems. So effectively, it's a physical health problem, and it's just expressing as a mental health problem. I take a young guy to the gym and start working out with him. He's not depressed while he's in there. I mean, you try and be depressed while you're doing an overhead press. You lift 100 kilograms above your head, you're not depressed. So it's just physiologically incompatible. I mean, that's what embodiment coaching is, right? You're helping the mind through the physiology, and you don't have to do that in the gym, But with young guys, the gym's a pretty good place to play because the gym's actually pretty popular amongst young guys. So I feel like, I've started doing a bit of coaching in the gym with young guys as well as my sort of more traditional embodiment coaching now.
That's like did that feel like quite a shift from being in, the classroom, the embodiment? It feels all like super like trauma informed and quite soft. And you go into this gym where there's, my first experience of gym in life was like a real meathead place where there was like metal clanging against the floor constantly.
Love it. Look at your energy in your body as you're saying that, I can see even just that memory is like livening you up, for me, I first discovered Asian practices like Aikido and meditation and yoga, and they were very good for me to build some discipline and self-awareness and self-regulation. Those Asian practices were great for me. They, helped me get sober. They helped me get myself together. As an ADHD bunny, they were super useful for me. So I love the Asian arts. And then I found other sort of more wild ones, the conscious dance, the things like that, a bit more expressive than the Asian arts maybe, and the trauma work, which is very Western. So this stuff comes from all over the world. There's lots of traditions. But then eventually I just wanted something, years and years and years doing like complex, emotionally intelligent arts. I just wanted something fucking simple. Because my running a company, dealing with trauma, dealing with, people's emotional issues all day long, I'm just like heavy thing up and down, gets me in my body. I loved how it made me feel. There's a masculine quality to it. Being strong is masculine. It is that simple. Don't overcomplicate it. And I love the feeling it gave me. And after a few years of doing it myself, what happened was various sort of single mum friends and lesbian friends were like, oh, can you take my boy to the gym? Because smart women, dumb women think they can raise boys. That's fucking dumb. They can't. They absolutely can't. Okay, no matter with the best intentions, smart women know that boys need men. There's things they can't give them. And so female friends would be like, hey, can you take my teenager to the gym? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then I would, obviously I'd mentor them a bit and coach them a bit in the gym. But embodied coaching can be pretty non-athletic. It's just a bit easier actually in the gym, but it is a different culture, as you say. It's a much more sort of masculine, physical kind of culture. But naturally stuff opens up. You can be doing a bench press and talking about boundaries and what you want to push out of your life. Naturally things open up with the different movements. And if nothing else, it takes people out of victim mode pretty quickly.
And it also shifts, because I remember as a young man, I first went to the gym when I was about 17. And off the back of a breakup, that's what actually started. A friend of mine dragged me there because I was feeling really low and depressed. Yeah. And what I think the gym taught me was a couple of things. Is like that I can actively create growth in my life, and shift and change things. Yeah, because you're sculpting your body to some degree, and also the power of
agency. Right, you're seeing I've had an impact on my own body through my own hard work. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I can underline that.
And then there's this like piece around. Because, you start going to the gym, you get some gains quite quickly. There's a 2-3 month period where you're like, oh, wow, and I can really see that. And then there's a kind of arc of 6 to 12 months where it really slows down. And that basically continues for the rest of your gym time, in my experience, where it becomes very slow and you don't really see it, you don't notice, but it's a kind of a practice, isn't it? You stay in the practice because you know that it feels good, even though you're not seeing the immediate results. So it kind of trains this kind of delayed gratification as well. And the discipline of doing something over a long period that's hard, that's painful, and that there always be dips in. And I think this is something that I see with younger men or men in general, is this how they deal with failure or the perception of failure. And with the gym, it's like you always failing, you're always pushing to failure, or often pushing to failure, and you're often meeting what you think is a boundary or maybe your limit, and you're spurring yourself mentally to push past that limit.
Yes. So the Greek gymnasia was a place of holistic development, emotional, physical, philosophical, psychological, not just physical. And even though we haven't got that idea so much in the West, that idea is, by the way, to a Japanese would be totally commonsensical, that a dojo, an Aikido or karate dojo is where you do that, it's character development. That was all the original sports, which obviously were all British. If any American listeners are listening, they're all invented in the UK. Those sports were all done as character development. And that was the original idea. And that's got lost slightly, but it always comes out again. And you hear, like, I trained a bunch of PTs in Holland last week, and it wasn't hard to teach them this stuff because they're like, oh, yeah, I see clients get confidence. And you can think of it as skill acquisition. Like, what is discipline? It's the ability to do something hard when you don't feel like it. I went to the gym at 7:30 this morning and it was dark. And it's like winter, I don't feel like it. My Italian girlfriend's having a coffee on the couch. She said, I'll see you there in a bit, And I'm like, right, this is what we do. We go to the gym and I've got to get it in before work, And then when I'm there, I'm dealing with difficulty. I'm dealing with frustration. I'm working with failure, all those things you say. There's a set of skills we build in the gym. And that's way more interesting to me than biceps. My pecs are coming along, but frankly, my titties are almost as big as my girlfriend's at this point. How big do they need to be? Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, what's the point in having big pecs? But there's a lot of point in working through my emotions. Maybe for you, when you broke up with that girl, you had some frustration, you had some sadness, you had to find your agency and your power again. That's a beautiful thing. And it's so practical. And for some people, that's martial arts. For some people, that's the gym. I think there's, as an embodiment coach, I often help people find a practice that suits them. And, for me at the moment, the gym's great. Also, just practically, I travel a lot. It's hard to find a good dojo, but it's real easy to find a gym. It's open 24/7, whatever. There's practicalities, financial stuff. And I always say to people, like, if you want to get in your body, first thing is just fall in love with any embodied practice. For me, originally it was Aikido, later Tango, later other things, and Jiu-Jitsu. But then, now it's weights. So it's like, what? If you find something that gets you in your body that you love, do that. Do that. That is brilliant. So that's what I just encourage everyone listening to this is you get out in nature. Great. That's also, get in the parks if you're in the cities every day. That's helpful. But the main one is just move in any way that you get in your body and that you enjoy.
And I think there's two thoughts I have currently that are spurred off. It's like when we talk about men, because there's this embodiment piece. And then I often see it as there's like a relational embodiment as well, right? Because when you're in the gym, you're with your weights, and they're kind of inanimate. They're not going to talk to you. But one of the other things that we're seeing with men is this big issue around loneliness. And you mentioned it before around embodiment and being able to feel, and there's being able to feel if someone is a good person or their character by being with them. And I see this as a real skill set that men often lack in, like this real, we've talked about some of that, why that the gym isn't necessarily going to give a man that piece of skill set.
So there's different embodiment skill sets. I break it down in, courses and books and stuff, right? It takes a while. So the gym might be good for self-awareness, for self-regulation, maybe self-expression if you give it a bit of a shout and a scream while you're doing it. But, maybe not as well as dancing, for example. Like, I lived in Brazil above a nightclub. I learned a whole different embodiment culturally there. I took the British stick out of my ass and learned to dance, I'm like Irish, British, white guy who couldn't dance. But after 6 months living in the favela, I could move, I had to have that immersion to learn that. For other people, the relational practices. So I met the founder of Acro Yoga recently in Austin, Jason Nima, nice guy. And that's a relational practice. And it's all about trust and safety and connection. Beautiful practice. Tango, Aikido, these relational practices that are going to teach you things. And this is like level 2. So if level 1 is, I'm in my head, I'm a accountant in London, I just want to get my body, do fucking anything. Level 2 though is like, all right, I've been doing yoga or maybe kickboxing or whatever for a while. What am I missing? So now we can build some range, right? So some of your listeners just do anything, but some of your listeners are already sophisticated. They're already doing, they've got embodiment training. But the problem is we tend to just deepen our neurosis. I was at a yoga club in London once, a yoga studio, one of the big ones, and I went to rocket yoga followed by yin yoga. So rocket's like your hardcore yang, pushing yoga, yin, super chill. And the exact wrong people were going to those classes. Like rocket yoga was all like your type A city boys, and yin was all these like this really chill hippie girls. And I was like, you guys are all in the wrong fucking class. Like you're just becoming more neurotically you instead of building your range. And yes, sometimes we should just do what's fun. We all love the smell of our own shit, right? But it's also like sometimes let's stretch ourselves, like some of the, I've got friends who do circling, like these beautiful relational practices. For me, it's like pulling teeth, but it's super useful for me. Or improv comedy. Like I've got friends that take live, well, I don't need to do improv. My whole family are comedians. We don't have a problem with that. But some people, they need to find I've got German students who are really stiff and they just need to find the, it's like, come on, mate, loosen up. Improv would do them a world of good. Whereas others who, there's just guys who are a bit wet, they're in Shadwell, Shoreditch, excuse me, and they need to go to kickboxing. They need to be kicked in the head a few times. It's different things for different people.
Yeah.
If you're wearing a beanie, you need it kicked off. That's what you should take away from that. That's the main thing you take away from that rant.
And it's funny you talk about the yoga because for many years I wouldn't touch yoga, especially in my gym days. I wouldn't touch it. I was like, yoga. I remember openly saying, like, yoga's just stretching. It's pointless. There's no point doing that. Like, yoga's for girls. I'm not doing yoga. And I went to a friend of mine took me. This is after I went traveling for a couple of years, and my mind opened up a bit more. And I came back and I did a Jiva Mukti yoga class with a couple, Chris and Kiko. I never forget them because I went to that class religiously for a year and a half, and it was it was an hour and a half class, and we literally walk out.
Tough yoga, yeah, it's tough yoga.
Dripping wasn't the word. Like your whole clothes would be saturated with sweat, and what you talk about range really kind of like physically felt it. Like, oh, there's this whole range of like not just pushing heavy weights, but holding yourself in a position that's mildly uncomfortable and trying to stay somewhat relaxed and be able to
relaxing
keep your attention on your breath.
That's a skill, right? And that's a very useful skill to be able to relax. Today I had some difficult staff meetings. It's the end of the year. Everyone's a bit tired. We had a bit of grumpiness. It's like, okay, can I stay relaxed in this difficult meeting? That's the transferable life skill. And you're not going to get it from a book. You're not going to get it from chat fucking GPT. It's something you have to train because the West is confused as to what knowledge is. We think that knowing about things is the same as knowing something. Right? It's like someone said, I've read a lot of books on kissing. That's not the same as being able to kiss. It's not the same as having lovers from different countries throughout your life. And, it's not the same at all. Let's go live in Brazil. It's different. So that is what we've confused knowledge for, this book knowledge, this knowing about things. And that's where embodiment's needed. It's not the only thing, but it's needed.
It's an experiential practice of feeling what it feels like, because when you talked about the yoga, it's something that I started to really practice because my thing was I avoid conflict. That's my habit in relationship, and learning to stay in conflict, stay present and breathe so I can still be like, actually, I have a functional mind in those moments. And I really can trace it back to two things I started to do. I started to do a lot more breath work in the mornings, especially like breath holds. And I trace it back to doing yoga because I was used to being able to I'm in pain, emotional or physical, but I can stay here and still listen to the instructions from the teacher or stay in this breath hold, even past what I feel is my capacity, that belief and pushing past.
You only have one system for stress, that's the body, and one system for dealing with stress, that's also the body. So, learning about stress, to be aware of the stress, not just theoretically, not just knowing the neuroscience, and then learning the skill, which takes practice of overcoming that. And, there's different pieces to that, right? We could look at our baseline, life stress, our trauma and work with that. But there's also a skill set that you were able to transfer, which is, a great example of embodied learning. And I give my, coaching clients quite little practices, little short things, they can take away one yoga pose for work on something, or cold shower once a day, or breath hold once a day, like little practices they can take away to learn those skills.